Okay, so every year we're supposed to do this training, and I just wanted to send out this PowerPoint and just kind of hit some highlights and have you ask any questions that you might have after you read through the material. So this is required by the OSHA Code of Federal Regulations, and you see the reference there. And it requires annual training of employees, and I know we've gotten together for lunch, and we'll probably do that again, but I figured this was kind of easy for us to do, maybe for a couple years in a row, and then do an in-room training. So I just want to talk about the chemical hygiene plan. I update it every year. It hasn't changed a lot, but there are some times where chemicals and that kind of thing have been determined to not be safe enough, and that changes. But let's just go through some of the basics that might affect you. And so we're going to talk about all of these things. The global harmonization labeling we've talked about before, but it's relatively new, so we'll talk about that. Now, OSHA doesn't talk about student safety, but we'll just talk about that as limiting liability for you. So always be aware of how toxic the substances are that you're using, and you can always take a look at the safety data sheet associated with that chemical, and you should always have the safety data sheet for that chemical nearby in a binder, and just check and make sure what the routes of exposure are and what the signs are of ingestion or inhalation, what happens when that chemical enters your body. You want to make sure that it doesn't. You want to minimize the routes of exposure, so just good hand washing and sanitizing, but not with a hand sanitizer, because that actually sometimes just exacerbates the problem. So soap and water is generally the best bet. Some signs that you might be exposed: lightheadedness, dizziness, nausea, coughing, that kind of thing, and you should definitely alert someone immediately. Really should never work alone in the laboratory, or at least you should have somebody nearby that can help you if you were to need help. Fume hoods are good if you are, any type of irritant or toxicity to limit exposure for yourself or students. Every fume hood should be tested on an annual basis, which I come around and do, or Resource comes around and does, to make sure that you have the level where the lid or the hood is supposed to be put, and making sure that that is getting the best suction that you need to get. Safety data sheets, you can look up any safety data sheet with this link right here, and they've, again, redid this about 4 or 5 years ago so that it's uniform throughout the world with pictograms that are, sort of universal. And physical and health hazards are in section 2 with those pictograms. So here are the pictures, and you can kind of see that across the board, regardless of what language you speak, you can probably tell what the problems are. So you can read through those. There are some of them that we would never order, like a skull and crossbones, but a lot of them, or exploding bomb, but some of them you'll see on the new chemicals you order, like flame, corrosion, health hazard, environmental hazard, that kind of thing. Gas cylinders we really shouldn't have as well, because gas cylinders need to be secured in a certain way. So these two and this one we would never have in our schools. All right, if we were to have a OSHA inspection, OSHA is really going to look at housekeeping right away. A clean and well-organized storage area is essential. They're going to look at that, and they may not even look any further. If they see a well-organized area where things are labeled correctly, they're not going to be looking too much closely after that. Make sure your fume hoods are not used as storage. I know if you're doing a lab right away, stuff is in there, but not be used as a long-term storage for anything. And just make sure that labs are put away as soon as possible, and you clean up spills immediately, that kind of thing. Make sure that you're clear with lab protocol, whether it's signs or standard operating procedures, that no eating or drinking in the lab areas. Loose hair and clothing is tied back, or like I'll tell my kids with sweatshirts to push their sleeves up. Long hair tied back in a ponytail. Goggles worn at all times, never leaving heat sources unattended or working alone, and making sure that if you have a new chemical for a new lab that you check with me to make sure it's okay. One of the big things is not over-ordering. The less chemicals on hand mean a less dangerous situation. So before I got here, one of the teachers had ordered a 20-liter container of acetone, which just never really should happen in this day and age. Keep a spill kit nearby. All of the high school rooms do have a spill kit. If you feel like in the middle school you need a spill kit, definitely let me know. Test showers and eye washes weekly and record any attached tag. And between the custodians and my TAs, we try to get those done. I know there are some teachers that don't want to be interrupted, and that's fine. Just make sure that you do it. And that we keep a current chemical inventory of all the chemicals with the GHS labeling. And the older chemicals are grandfathered in, so they don't need the GHS labeling, but I have gone through and labeled almost everything, I think, with the GHS labeling. Let's see. The test showers and eye washes have been deemed not necessary at the middle school. We've looked into that. If you still feel that you'd be more comfortable with one there, we can certainly look into that. It's not OSHA necessary, but I'm sure we have the funds if you feel like you would want one there. A couple of chemicals I would say are methanol. Don't use it or order it. I have a very tiny little bit in my organic cabinet for an ester lab, but in many high schools it's been used to show the colors for the metals, and the flame is too invisible, or very invisible, and the flash point's too low, and the educational value does not exceed the danger. So if there is a high school fire, it's usually methanol, so we should not use that. I've already kind of talked about the global harmonization labeling. The biggest thing here is if you're making secondary solutions, make sure that you make up a GHS label for the bottle, and make sure that the pictogram is on there, signal words indicating severity of hazard like corrosive or toxic, and hazard and precautionary statements. So when you're making it up, basically copy the original label that's on the original bottle and put it on the new bottle. Emergency response, hopefully if we are very careful, we shouldn't have to have any emergency responses, but occasionally we'll have spills and that kind of thing, which we've had before. If it's a very little bit and you're not being affected, it's fine to clean that up, but if there's any lightheadedness, coughing, etc., you should call the office, the principal, me, and 911 if you need it. And we occasionally would maybe need the hazmat team. I know at Edina High School when I worked there, we had in our chemical storage room the fan, the engine, or the motor, sorry, malfunctioned, and we were smelling ozone, I'm thinking. And we thought, oh gosh, what is this? We couldn't figure out what it was, but we got out of there and we called the hazmat team immediately. Okay, so this is not under OSHA, but limiting your liability, just one little thing can happen and you're in court. So I would have every student sign a safety contract. I would enforce the wearing of safety goggles through lab tickets or consequences or rewards, and not allow any form of fooling around in the lab whatsoever. You can order safety posters through Health and Safety Budget. There's some other things that you can order through Health and Safety. It's pretty specific, so you let me know what you need, and I can see if we can get it through Health and Safety rather than say our science budget. Chemicals whose danger exceed their educational value. I'm a little iffy on sodium metal. I suppose if we're really careful with that. Methanol, though, I just really don't think we should have that at all. Testing the showers and eye washes weekly. If you have one in your room, I'd appreciate if you ran it occasionally to see if we got clean, tepid water running from them. If we ever need to use that on a student or a teacher, we would definitely want to have tepid water because you can't have that cold water running through. That would damage the eyes. In conclusion, just realize that sometimes Resource Training and Solutions does a mock OSHA inspection. Actually, they do it every year. We've had one real OSHA inspection, which I'm pretty sure took years off my life, but he did not fine us for anything. And again, I think he looked at the storerooms, saw that they were organized and well put together, and he was like, okay, everything's good here. But we do want to do continuous improvement. But if you feel like there's anything that needs to be addressed or you'd like ordered for health and safety, please contact me. And like I said, many items we can order through those funds rather than department funds. So thank you for watching, and please just email me once you've watched it, and I will send you a certificate for continuing or CEUs. And if you have any questions, please also email me. Thank you.